Hi Nicholas, welcome to the Product Leaders Podcast. How are things with you?
Very good. A bit of cough today, but great to be here and great to speak to you, Ben.
Nice. I'm sure we'll get through it, and we'll do some good editing if needed. Great to have you on, and I've been excited to line up this chat with you. I think you'll bring quite a unique perspective to this kind of conversation, and this particular season of classes around obviously data, AI, and ML product management. So clearly we'll dive into that in a bit more detail in terms of what you do with your business. I think you'll offer quite a unique perspective, different to what other people have sort of spoken about. Perhaps maybe as a starting point, you just tell us a little bit more about what you do, the business that you've founded, and just give a little overview of that. That'd be great.
Yeah, thanks. So YOOI, we are a SaaS platform, really kind of the cockpit for data and AI leaders, chief data officers, chief data and AI officers to animate, drive, track the value of their data and AI transformation, of their data and AI investments. And most of the time we recommend or we support a data product or the AI product approach. So the idea is to say, how do you approach your data and AI investments like a portfolio of different products, and how you have a consistent way and systematic way about identifying opportunities, prioritizing them, framing the right products, tracking their delivery, and then over time, so basically managing the end-to-end life cycle of data and AI products. So it's kind of our pretty unique positioning today on the market, but something that is a strong belief on how we can overcome just sometimes a very bottom-up driven approach, of just building technology things for the sake of building technology, basically.
Yeah, nice. I really like that. I think it's clearly a great sort of problem area that you've identified. Clearly, there's a huge opportunity with this expansion of companies obviously building data and AI products. Everyone seems to be on that trend at the moment, don't they? And you kind of touched upon it then, and we spoke about it in our sort of preamble to the podcast. But I get maybe just frame it to the listener. Do you guys build a data product, or do you not consider what you build a data product?
No, we don't build data products ourselves. What we do is we help people build data products, and especially build data products at scale. And because one of the changes we've seen with especially larger organizations is that you don't have one data product you want to build. You have maybe tens of them, hundreds of them. And then the question is, how do you scale that product management approach? How do you scale that product management discipline? And how do you scale adoption? Because at the end, if you build product, it's to have them adopted. And so it's more about, we have a kind of a special angle in the sense that we don't build data products ourselves, but we help people mature on this topic and build data products for their own organization.
Yeah, nice. It makes a lot of sense. It's essentially a B2B SaaS product, which is enabling data product management and building those products. Yeah, I guess have you worked in data and AI before? Maybe tell the listener a little bit more about that. Understanding of quite a technical background and.
My background is engineering first and product, not data product, but product. So I've been doing product for 25 years, so I have some gray hairs already. And I came to data and AI probably 15, 20 years ago, to do more heavily data-driven or AI-driven products for different organizations in industries. And what drove me to create YOOI was, how do we bring those product management principles and all those things we learn on how to build product to the data and AI space? And that's where, at the end of building things and because that's a typical struggle we've seen. And the way I wanted to bring that was from what we call the value-driven angle, saying we need to drive everything we do from a value angle. And of course, we can't talk about product without talking about value in a sense. Even if we sometimes see people who kind of claim they do data products, which actually just repackage their technical stuff as calling it product. But that's missing the point altogether, because the point of building products is to be customer-centric, is to be value-centric, and then for me, that's when I simplify what I mean by a product or data product is it has to be customer-centric, value-driven, and it has to have a life cycle in the sense that it's not a one-time thing. It's something that you build, that you maintain, that you evolve, and maybe that you stop or re-evolve otherwise. And if you don't have those two dimensions, all the rest is just technicalities.
Yeah, I think that, completely agree with you. That kind of value piece is so important, isn't it? I think it's clear, sort of reading about you, that's definitely the forefront of it, that value-driven approach, and I suppose that helping customers to your own customers to drive value for their customers through the products that they build. And I think it's really important, again, the distinction on that kind of iteration of a product, and that being the differentiator between a project, building a product, and then maybe a project or something that isn't a data product.
That's an important topic, because when you shift from a project mindset to a product mindset, I believe you need to start caring about adoption way more. And because when people are building projects, your focus is to deliver the project, and then basically you could say job done, I'm finished. But when you're working as a product manager, then you have a deeper requirements to care about adoption, and to care about how I'm going to get feedback, and how I'm going to evolve my product to continue to serve my clients, etc., etc.
No, it definitely is, and that kind of deep understanding of that customer is super important, isn't it? So I guess YOOI, you started it 6 years ago now, almost, I think, was it almost to the day?
Yeah.
Obviously you've also been on a long journey there, which is really, really cool, and you scaled the business. When you sort of first started building YOOI, did you have it in mind that you would go for like on a sort of enterprise size businesses in terms of the customer? Even just the initial product, was it quite similar, the idea, as to how it is now? How did that evolve? How did that iteration happen?
I think the idea was pretty similar, and we didn't change so much the intent, and we always wanted to focus on enterprise, because enterprise is where you have a scaling issue on building things, and you have that kind of need to have that what we call portfolio thinking. So it's product management, but at scale. So you need to look about it as a portfolio of products. And of course, this is where the value management aspect is also not the most important, but the most visible in a way, because when you're very small, we can hope you'll have some alignment on what you do and why, but it can be lost in complexity when you scale the organization. And the initial idea was not necessarily framed as being product driven, but as what I call operationalizing the data in strategy. So saying, you have a strategy written somewhere, but it's not, then there is a disconnect with what's happening on the field and what people are building. And then there is a disconnect on the value, and how you're going to, again, move to something that is more continuous improvement, and an ongoing capture of business requirements, feedback, and so on. And naturally, it goes to driving a product mindset. So this is where we more reframe, I would say, the messaging, especially now with the data product management, I would say, principle getting more traction and visibility on the market. But that's something that has always been at the core of what we do, is say, you need to build things that are basically products, and that are but again, so something I talk a lot is what I call the StratOps approach. Is basically like we take DevOps, DataOps, and so on. And the main idea behind DevOps has always been, let's build a connection between what people build and how you operate, and how it creates a feedback loop to do it better. And when we take strategy and operating model and how you deliver and maintain and so on, we need the same thing. And most of the time it's missing that kind of agility, feedback loop, and measurement. And then measurement is where you can have both, like technical measurement, like data quality, cycle, adoption, also value.
Nice, yeah, it sort of sounds. I think there's a couple of things that I'm keen to unpack there. So I guess you identified the problem area, and obviously the target customer. So is there there's sometimes when you think, well, our product isn't for you guys. Does that happen? Maybe you're not quite the right cultural fit from a product perspective to really be able to make full use of YOOI.
Not necessarily, in the sense that the way we approach things is not to be very, how to say, I'm not trying to bring product management as a cult, and saying you have to do it that way and not the other way and so on. And more trying to be very pragmatic, on the sense that if you want people to get there, you need to have a journey, and you need to pick them where they are and help them grow. And sometimes trying to sell the end goal is almost impossible if you're not there yet, So you try to sell people that they're going to drive a Formula One and they don't even have their driver license yet. So it doesn't make any sense in a way. And we can find some visionary people within the organization, but still the organization is going to buy on why we should build products and so on. So it's a journey. And one of the big things we do in how we approach that is to help people structure things and nature those operating model and things step by step. So maybe it can start with simple things like how do we consistently capture demands and prioritize them? That's a small but a big problem, and to make sure that we have a good way to fund that and budget that, or even how do we give visibility across the organization to avoid duplicate investments or more across different business units and divisions. Similarly, we have clients who are talking about the data product approach, but they try to avoid the data mesh wording because data mesh has been a bit too bullshitty maybe sometimes. So in effect, they're building a mesh, but they're just talking about we're building products because this is what is going to be reused across different BUs or divisions and so on. So we have a very, very open-minded and flexible way on how we take people where they are in terms of maturity and then walk the path depending on the organization. That path can be very different. For example, we have clients who are very centralized in how they organize things with a central data office and building things for everyone. But you have also very decentralized organization with hub and spoke models or with a low central governance and a lot of power and delivery capabilities in the business unit. So you also need to adapt the way you deal with those practices to fit where those organizations are and the reality on how they operate today and maybe how they want to operate tomorrow.
Sure, yeah. So you almost, in a way, sometimes you're actually maybe guiding your customers through that process towards greater maturity from a data product perspective or even just a product perspective.
Exactly. So it's really going there step by step. What I learned also in my career, not only on YOOI, is that if you try to go too fast on change management, you don't have adoption, and at the end you sell nice promises, but no one's getting there. So the most important thing for me is always the whole concept of continuous improvement, which is core to product management in a way. We need to deliver things iteratively, we need to learn, we need to adjust, we need to have feedback loops. And basically, again, this is why I'm talking about startups, and this is what is core about saying, let's build products. So product means we have an MVP and then we're going to evolve and have new versions. And it's the same for maturity, operating model, and products themselves. So it's at different levels.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what you mean there. So that makes a lot of sense. You also talked about, you talked quite a bit about value and driving value through the product. I suppose I have a lot of conversations with data product leaders who put a lot of emphasis on ROI being that for value. But I suppose across your customer base, what are the varying metrics that customers use to show value? I guess that'd be really interesting to hear, given your perspective of a lot of different data product businesses, companies building them.
That value is interesting. We use the word value and not ROI, for example, because ROI is a very always short-sighted or narrow vision of what value can be, and sometimes a challenge one because value can be indirect, long-term, transformative, and then the ROI aspect is very debatable in a way. So that's very interesting. So the first thing when we talk about value is that we always start with how does the organization already think in terms of value, and not just for data, just generally speaking. How do they define their strategic business objectives? How do they measure? How do they give objectives to the different teams? So maybe they have OKRs, or maybe they have, just strategic levers, strategic programs, etc. What I mean by that is that then what value means for one client and the other one can be totally different because it depends on their industry, on their maturity, and how the choices are made. So, for example, sometimes it's very financial. It's a profit, margin, growth of revenue, operational efficiency. Something can be around NPS, etc. But you can also find other kind of metrics like carbon footprint. So we have clients, especially in the energy industry, where reducing their carbon footprint is core to their strategy, and they use AI to help with reducing carbon footprint or to digitalize some processes that will reduce their carbon footprint. So it's something that is reported very high up the hierarchy without trying to put any dollar value on top of that. It's because it's an objective in itself. Or you can, for example, think about how you care about your employee well-being and retention and so on. So maybe you can put a dollar value on that, but maybe you don't want to do that. So if you say we're going to deploy AI to reduce load on some teams or to make their work more efficient, etc., that's a value angle. And that's important when we talk about value. It's the same. It's a journey. If you try to financialize everything, it's doable, but it's sometimes a long journey. So you need to start by doing maybe some qualitative things, at least knowing how you articulate that thing. I'm doing this product because it's going to support our goal of reducing customer churn. And if you know how to at least track that afterwards, it's a huge step toward at least having a good discussion. Is the investment worth the benefit we're looking for? And it's also a good way to have that. For me, the other point about value which is important is that sometimes I have seen chief data officers or data teams who believe that it's their responsibility to deliver value. It's true and not true. What I mean by that, of course, you need to be careful about am I working on something valuable, but you should not avoid to put the responsibility or the accountability on the people who need the product. So if you have a requester, it depends how you look at your product, but inside, if it's an internal product, it means you have a business, you need to request the product. So you need to be very clear that they're accountable of assessing the value they expect from the product upfront, and then they need to be accountable to report on the value they realize from that product afterwards. If you try to support all of that by yourself as a data team, it's really tough because you're going to run after them and kind of have the wrong positioning, because you carry the burden of delivering value, whereas at some point, the one requesting that is also responsible maybe you make them pay for the product or for the investment, or you make them pay for subscription and saying, hey guys, if you don't have value, we're going to kill it. That's fine, it's okay, but and it's really important to give a healthier conversation in a way for me with your clients in effect.
That's super interesting. I think, that sheds a lot of light on the other things that honestly companies need to look at other than ROI. I think that's really invaluable. So thanks for that. I suppose there'll be data and AI product managers, listening to this podcast. Those conversations that are being had with your customers, when they're trying to decide which metrics to use, is it typically like top down, or are they data product managers who are heavily involved in those conversations? I guess who are the stakeholders who are involved in those conversations, and typically who drive who?
We always need to have the business in those discussions, or sometimes we can work through that with finance. It depends on the role of finance within the organization, but there are organizations where basically transformation is part of finance. Then finance not only cares about financial metrics, but also about the levers in the business. And then it's a great way to, again, capture those levers, because they say, okay, if we know the value levers within the organization, then we know how to, we have a better way to articulate those things. But if you don't have that as already well defined, then it's really about working that with the businesses and with your different clients, stakeholders, requesters. And one thing we're doing in YOOI is to build what we call a value lineage, which is not necessarily a quantified, but at least a qualitative visualization on how do you link a strategy, business objectives, and OKRs with use cases and then with data and AI products. And what we've learned is that it's actually proved to be really useful with the businesses to force documentation, because they see that it's not so complex to do. It's not like, we ask them to search rocket science and very complex attribution models, but it's obviously valuable because now you can document why you've been doing stuff and what is even just as it could be a written form of how you're going to use that and deliver value with that and so on. And just having that first level of documentation is a huge step in terms of maturity and saying, okay, now, of course, we need that, and then you can try to be more consistent. So we start with one business unit, for example, and then you extend saying, can we have the similar view for you? And again, starting with that basis, then we can, in a later stage, add more evaluation metrics, or more combining that with other stuff, or correlating that with, for example, how does data quality impact the value of the product, or you can go further, but it's always a maturity path, basically.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I guess for data product managers listening, if they are having those conversations with their own companies about what metrics to set, and maybe trying to get buy-in from the CDO maybe, or maybe someone senior in the leadership team, I guess, do you have any advice on how to go about setting those metrics aside from ROI?
Yeah, again, I think for me it's a typical product manager question. Is saying, do I know my target users and my personas and so on, and then do I understand the job? So there's different frameworks to do that, but basically the whole idea is what are they doing, what is the job, what are the decisions they take, for example, and then you need to be able to articulate how is that data product or how is that AI model I'm going to deliver going to help them achieve their goals. And this is the best way to work about that. Again, it's typical product management in a way. You start from your persona, start from the value proposition, but you need to be able to articulate very well how are you going to help them, basically. Are they going to be more efficient? Are they going to be able to take decisions they couldn't take before? Are they going to be more precise? And that's key, because this is how also you're going to work on one critical thing to achieve value, which is adoption. Because you need not only to know if your product is going to theoretically deliver value, but more precisely, how they're actually going to use that in their day-to-day lives. Because most of the, there is a metric saying 75 to 80% of data and AI products delivered in organization are never used. So if it's never used, whatever you've done has absolutely no value, of course. So now, if you have those discussions with your stakeholders and target users about what are you doing in your job and how would you use that product, maybe, if you're delivering a new algorithm to better identify churn or potential churn, you need to be very clear about what would be an interesting information, how should I give it to you, and what are you going to do about it? Because if you just do it and no one is tasked to act upon it, it's going to be a failure. So that's the best way, because now you also have a way to come to your boss or whoever is going to fund that with a really good business case, because and again, you know how you're going to do it and why.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I think, obviously, as you allude to, it goes back to those product management principles, doesn't it, I suppose? I mean, you gave the example earlier, obviously, that in the energy space and, being, reducing carbon footprint and that sort of thing is, that could be a metric. I suppose that's a specific persona for that particular customer or particular company.
Exactly. Yeah, there's plenty of stories. Again, the carbon footprint is a good one, because if it becomes a goal, if it's in the, let's say, almost in the variable, objective for everyone, you need to align what you deliver with the goals of the people you deliver it to. And the goals are usually how they're going to be measured in their annual review. That's if the incentive structure is aligned with how you're going to help them achieve their incentives, that's the best way to deliver products that are going to have an impact.
Nice, that's really useful. I think I have lots of conversations with data PMs who really find navigating that kind of conversation challenging, and that's often what people are interested in finding out about. How does it happen in different organizations? And that's great. I guess maybe as a final point, when it was a final topic to come to, I'm really interested to hear what's next for YOOI. Where are you guys going? Where do you see, you've been in this AI world for 6 years, but in this product, and it's obviously transformed a lot. But what's next, and what are you guys excited about?
I think what's next is that probably the AI space is getting more and more important. So that's why we're talking about data products, but also data and AI products, which are both similar but are driving different challenges. Especially AI products need to have even more questions around risk management and ethical and responsible use of AI and so on. So that's something that makes the work of product manager even harder. And so that's something we're working on to make sure that we help looking at the portfolios. And one of the big topic is how do we avoid having data and AI as being separate topic, but more as because of course data is more and more fuel for AI, and you need to understand what you want to achieve with AI to have a good way to frame your supporting data products in a way. So we look a lot at that continuum and at that topic. So the main thing for me is to continue to work on how organizations have a coherent way about thinking about not only data but really the end-to-end spectrum.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I've said it throughout this conversation. I've talked a little bit about data and AI being separate. I think that's very important that they're joined together, and obviously, again, probably depends case to case. Some businesses will only build AI products, rather than maybe talking about more of a core data product. But clearly, that's an important factor. And I guess for your customers as well, if they're enterprise businesses, and there's definitely going to be that differentiation between the two. And I guess they're going to be adding more to the AI side of things as things move forward over the next few years.
Yeah, and probably AI products are even more driving the need to have supporting data products, because you need to, even legally speaking in Europe, you need to have that ongoing, what they call aftermarket monitoring, saying you have legally an objective an obligation to monitor the performance and the quality of your AI models. And as such, if you don't have the same principles for your supporting data, it's not going to work. So you need to step up a lot on that. And I believe that's still a big journey for many organizations to not just deliver things one time, but to really muscle how you're going to, again, scale that and make it sustainable over time in terms of structure and things.
Yeah, nice. No, definitely. Well, I really appreciate you coming on, Nicolas, and I look forward to seeing how YOOI kind of develop over the next few years. Clearly a very compelling product that you built. And, it sounds like you're making a real difference to that today's product world, which clearly is growing. People listening to this podcast will hugely appreciate, and I'm sure they appreciate your insights as well. So I really appreciate your time coming on.
I hope it's going to be valuable for the audience. So if anyone has questions, please reach out on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to have a chat on those topics and to see how we can discuss among people in the industry or in the topic. So yeah, thanks a lot for having me, Ben. It's a great discussion.
No problem at all. We'll leave your LinkedIn URL in the show notes as well. So great. Thanks very much, Nicolas.
Thank you.